وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه أما بعد. We'll be commencing a series of going through one of the most important sciences of Islam, which is Al-Aqidah. And in Al-Aqidah, we have sorts of books which were written in the time of Salaf. And these books had i'tina, as in they were studied and relayed and transmitted throughout the time of the Salaf till our times, which we live in, which we called as Kutub al-Musnada, as in these books have been transmitted with a chain of transmission. From them is the book of Imam al-Muzani and the treatise of Imam al-Muzani rahmatullahi alayhi, which is called Sharhus Sunnah. And the objective of this class, bi'idhnillahi tabarak wa ta'ala, is to break down this book in a systematic methodology. Starting with the title of this book, Imam al-Muzani rahmatullahi alayhi has named and titled his book to be Sharhus Sunnah. Okay, what does this mean? What does Sharhus Sunnah mean? Breaking it down one by one, a sharh means al-bayan, okay, which means to clarify. And a sunnah in this specific context, means al-i'tiqad. As in, the word sunnah is synonymous to the word al-aqidah. And we'd come across amongst the Salaf that they would use certain words which are synonymous to aqidah, such as al-tawheed, such as al-iman, such as usul al-din, such as al-fiqh al-akbar, such as al-sharia. These words mentioned, okay, have a general meaning and again a specific meaning based on the context spoken. And at times it's synonymous and other times it could mean something else. فعلى سبيل المثال, when we see Kitab al-Iman, Imam al-Muslim rahmatullahi alayhi in Sahih, yeah, what he means by Kitab al-Iman is Kitab al-Aqidah. But when we open Imam al-Bukhari's Sahih, and when he says Kitab al-Iman, it doesn't mean Kitab al-Aqidah, rather it means Musamma al-Iman, that which increases, that which is in the heart, that which increases and decreases. So based on context, Iman could mean Aqidah, Iman could mean that which is in the heart. Yani it differs. The Salaf, they sometimes use it as a synonym to al-Aqidah, at times, la. They use it with a specific meaning. طيب. And then we have the word sharh, which means al-bayan. So basically, the meaning of this, the title of this book is clarifying the methodology and the creed of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. That's what the title of the book means. What does al-aqidah mean? We keep listening to this word and hearing this word over and over again. Okay? Vernacularly in Islam, when we say aqidah, it means to have firm conviction and certainty in the matters of the unseen. So it doesn't have to do with the matters which you can see, which you can do mushahada of. Rather, it's to do the matters that are unseen and that which is explicit and mentioned in the Quran and Sunnah. So we have something to do with the tasdiq, and there's something to do with al-yaqeen. Again, al-aqidah is to have conviction in the matters of unseen and that which has been explicitly mentioned in al-Quran wa Sunnah. Okay, طيب. So again, is the faith al-aqidah, is the faith that we possess in our hearts. And it truly allows us to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like genuinely allows us to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what it should entail, us studying al-aqidah, learning aqidah, it should entail us loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, loving His religion, loving His legislation, why He has legislated certain commandments and prohibited us and told us to abstain from certain prohibitions. Al-aqidah allows us to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on a deeper level, on a spiritual level. And the benefits of al-aqidah should not stop on a theoretical level. Like we know a bunch of ma'lumat, bunch of taqsimat, a lot of categorizations, bunch of definitions. La, that's not the purpose of al-aqidah. Rather, aqidah is to be studied, to be practiced upon, to be understood, to connect with this religion on a practical basis. فلذا الصحابة رضوان الله عليهم أجمعين and the Salaf Salih, they weren't too fussed about knowing the fancy jargons and these terminologies and these books and so on and so forth. La. They were more like connected to the religion of Islam on a practical basis. Yeah, yet in the same time, they were the exemplary paragon of how a Muslim should be in terms of faith, character and conduct. But nowadays we have people who study a few words in aqidah, few taqsimat. Maybe they might know the categorization of tawheed, certain books like Thalath, Usul Qawad al-Arba. But they have the most filthiest of characters. And that's not what we want from al-aqidah, la. Us studying al-aqidah, us awwal shay we want to do is islah al-nafs. How can we rectify our character? How can we perfect our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and how can I understand why should I worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like certain times we are thrown with such like bunch of rulings, but we don't know why we should like worship Allah. I don't understand. I don't understand this religion. I can't connect with this religion. I don't enjoy this religion. The sabab of studying aqeedah is this. The sabab of the reason why we should study aqeedah is to connect with this religion. طيب. So again, going back to the title, what does the title mean? Clarification and explanation of the creedal beliefs of the methodology of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. طيب, who's the author? The author is Imam al-Muzani al-Shafi'i rahmatullah alayh. Imam al-Muzani, Yahya bin, Ismail bin Yahya al-Muzani rahmatullah alayh, is a scholar from Egypt, and he was al-Mujtahid al-Mutlaq غير al-Mustaqil. So he was Mujtahid al-Mutlaq, he was an independent, he was an absolute Mujtahid, but in the same time he was not independent. He was very much dependent on Shafi'i's, school of thought. And he was one of the most senior scholars of the Shafi'i fiqh. Rather, he authored one of the most important works in the Shafi'i madhab, which is called Mukhtasar al-Mukhtasar, which we know as Mukhtasar al-Muzani. And from that, all the books later on carried on. It's a branch of Mukhtasar al-Muzani. All the books we have, whether you say al-Minhaj and so on and so forth, all of them actually come from the Mukhtasar of al-Muzani, rahmatullah alayh. And he was like, literally, we could consider him to be the right-hand man of al-Muzani, Imam al-Shafi'i. He was the right-hand man of Imam al-Shafi'i. And he's also the maternal uncle of Muhammad ibn Salama, Abu Ja'far Muhammad ibn Salama al-Tahawi, rahmatullah alayh. Imam al-Tahawi, his uncle, maternal uncle, is Imam al-Muzani. طيب, why did he author this book, this treatise? Like, was he bored? Did he have a reason? The Salaf didn't have a practice in writing in the subject of Aqeedah. This was not the practice of a Salaf. But they wrote when there was a need. So rather, they would write and author in the subject of Al-Aqeedah in order to clarify certain misconceptions or in order to refute heresies or innovations. So it was not certain things like they would just sit down and be like, okay, let me just write an Aqeedah. Rather, the Salaf Salih, they wrote in the subject of Al-Aqeedah, imma to clarify certain misconceptions certain Muslims had in the time and place they lived in, so it was specific to them, or B, in order to refute heretics that emerged and arise in the time they lived in or the place they lived in. What's the reason? The sabab was the primary source of receiving and studying and understanding Al-Aqeedah was the Wahyain, Al-Quran was Sunnah. And Al-Quran was Sunnah was bayyin. It was very much clear. Nobody misunderstood it. Okay, rather, the need of writing of Al-Aqeedah came about when Islam started spreading across the globe. And the further the religion of Islam went away from Manbat al-Wahi, Mecca and Medina, it was introduced to foreign concepts and alterations, foreign distortions. And there were a number of factors that resulted in that. Number of factors that resulted in Al-Aqeedah to get distorted. From them, namely being A, the plots of the enemies of Al-Islam, the disbelievers, such as the Jews. B, the influence of the Greek philosophy. C, the weakening of the Arabic language, al-ujma. So when the Arabic language got weaker and weaker because Islam started spreading all across the globe. And it started going to like different countries which they did not perceive the Arabic language the way it should be perceived and understood. They started understanding the texts, al-Wahyain, in a manner which was unprecedented, opposing the methodology of the Salaf and likewise the Arabs. And as time passed by, these innovations just got bigger and bigger and got worse and worse and just evolved, mutated. And there was a dire need in defending the methodology of the creed of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. That's why the Salaf Salih started authoring books, imma to refute the heresies and innovations, or to clarify these misconceptions that occurred, or to answer a question that certain people had in Al-Aqeedah. So certain Muslims, they do not understand certain concepts, whether it's to pertains to Al-Qadr and the details of Al-Qadr, details of Yawm Al-Qiyamah. They didn't understand these certain concepts. So they used to ask the scholars, and the scholars used to write books in order to clarify those specific misconceptions. Again, Imam al-Muzani rahmatullah alayhi, his work was intended to, number one, refute certain heresies, specifically, namely being al-Qadariyah. those who negated al-qadr. Number 2, to clarify certain misconceptions certain Muslims had in his time, and to answer the questions answer questions of his companions and friends who were surrounding him. طيب. It's worthy to mention that the Salaf usually wouldn't author a book in order to teach Aqidah. So, which means that their books were not authored in a systematic way. Rather, their books were quite haphazard. A, which means the books were unorganized. B, it was not encompassing of all the subjects of Al-Aqidah. So certain times you might go through a book of Salaf and not come across the Masail of Tawheed. Abadan. Or sometimes you might go of books of Salaf, they might not even mention certain pillars of Iman. They might pick and choose. What's the reason? What do you guys think? What's the reason? What's the sabab? What the Salaf did not speak about all the subjects of Al-Aqidah. Jiyid. And rather they would author in Al-Aqidah in order to clarify misconception, a specific matter that was not clear. So it was like more of an answer to a need. It wasn't to teach Aqidah, la. The Salaf wouldn't write books of Aqidah in order to teach, la. Rather, either clarifying a misconception, refute the heresies, or in order to answer a question. هكذا. It was very specific. فهمتم كيف? So when we study this book of Sharh Sunnah للمزني, don't expect to know the entire Aqidah by just this book. لا أبدا. There's many other books which you have to study because the methodology of Salaf was very different to us. Does it make sense? طيب. With that being said, let's discuss and study this classical work which has been preserved throughout the centuries of Islam, by the great luminaries. طيب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I'll read the isnad of the kitab أولا. Because this book is, like I've mentioned, it's Kitab al-Musnad من الكتب المسندة. Imam al-Muzani mentions, the one who has the manuscript of Imam al-Muzani mentions, أخبرنا الفقيه الإمام شمس الدين أبو العز يوسف بن عمر بن أبي نصر الحكاري قال حدثنا الإمام الحافظ ثقة البقية السلف أبو إسحاق إبراهيم بن عثمان بن عيسى بن الدرباس المازني قال أخبرنا أبو عبد الله محمد بن أحمد بن حمد بن مفرج بن غياث الأرتاحي إلى سند المتصل إلى إمام المزني رحمة الله عليه. He mentions on saying بلغني أنه يتكلم في القرآن ويقف عنده، وذكر آخر أنه يقوله إلى أن اجتمع معنا قوم أخر فغم الناس ذلك غما شديدا فكتبنا إليه كتابا نريد أن نستعلم منه، فكتب إلينا شرح السنة في القدر والإرجاء والقرآن والبعث والنشور والموازين وفي النظر. فكتب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم عصمنا الله وإياكم بالتقوى ووفقنا وإياكم لموافقة الهدى. طيب. The author starts off by imploring, as in begging and beseeching for the salvation by the means of taqwa. And salvation has many meanings. And from the meanings is salvation means to preserve yourself from falling into that which enrages and displeases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with you, you're safe. And we do so, and we're safe from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by a taqwa. What is a taqwa? A taqwa has been defined by many. And from them, the easy way to understand and depicted is to protect yourself from the punishment of the hellfire. And the way to do that is by obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by acting upon that which He has commanded, and abstaining from that which He is displeased with. So basically, again, a taqwa is acting upon commandments and abstaining from prohibitions. This is a taqwa. Haqiqat al-taqwa. Rather, some of the Salaf, such as Ali ibn Abi Talib, he would say, التقوى means الخوف من الجليل والعمل بالتنزيل والرضا بالقليل والاستعداد ليوم الرحيل. As in, التقوى is to fear the All Majestic, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Likewise, acting upon the commandments in the revelation, which is in the Quran and Sunnah. Thirdly, being content with the little amount of provisions of the dunya. And number 4, preparing for the day of departure, as in the death. Ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu would define التقوى to be أن تحفظ الرأس وما وعى وأن تحفظ البطن وما حوى. As in, to preserve the head, the mind, the eyes, the mouth, the ears, and what it perceives from haram. and to preserve the stomach from what it contains from food that is impermissible. This is a taqwa. Different scholars define the taqwa in different ways. And Imam al-Muzani rahmatullah alayhi says one of the ways you can save yourself from the enragement and the punishments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is through a taqwa. There are other methods. We're not mentioning that. طبعا in the Sunnah we can find other methods to save ourselves. I think Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiyallahu anhu was asking the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Man najat, ya Rasulullah. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam gave other methods of salvation, such as امسك على لسانك وابكي على خطيئتك. امسك على لسانك وليسع بيتك وابكي على خطيئتك. As in, he said, to be safe from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you do so by withholding and safeguarding your tongue. Number 2, restricting yourself and staying within your homes and abodes unless there's a need. Don't go out. Don't mix with people. Number 3, crying out on the mistakes and the sins you have committed. And there's other methods of salvation as well. But Imam al-Muzani rahmatullah alayhi gave the usul, the foundation of safeguarding oneself, which is what? A taqwa. طيب. Then he makes dua. He makes dua. He says, وَوَفَّقَنَا وَإِيَّاكُمْ لِمُوَافَقَةِ الْهُدَى. The dua comes in 3 siyagh. Dua comes in 3 different patterns. Imma it comes in khabar. It's a khabar. Imma it comes as amr. Imma it comes as nahi. Okay? Example of amr, which we don't say amr, by the way, we don't say it's fi'l amr. We say it's fi'l al-talab. Okay, or dua. مثل اللهم اغفر لي. It's a way of dua. And then there's other, what's it called, forms of dua, which is just khabar. Like لا بأس طهور inshallah. This is a dua. When it's in the hal of khabar, you can add inshallah, the dua. But when it's in the hal of amr and nahi, you're not allowed to add inshallah, it's prohibited. طيب, this is just a tangent. Okay, طيب. Then he goes on to say أما بعد. أما بعد is called حرف الفصل. And there's a difference of opinion who's the first one to use it. حرف الفصل, using حرف الفصل in speech while addressing people is an emphasized sunnah. It's an emphasized sunnah. And the best way to do it is by saying completely أما بعد, not leaving off أما or بعد. Either you say like you cannot just say بعد. لا. You have to say أما بعد. This is called حرف الفصل. The first one to use it is Dawood alayhi salam. طيب. He goes on to say فإنك سألتني أن أوضح لك من السنة أمرا. Again, what does sunnah mean over here? What does sunnah mean, guys? لا. Again, شوف. A sunnah has, like I've said in the books of Aqidah, sunnah means Aqidah. It's synonymous to Aqidah. When you come across the word sunnah, it has different connotations based on different contexts in different sciences. Do not mix them. Do not mix them. Abadan, don't mix them. Why? Al-Muhaddithun, the scholars of Hadith, and those who study Hadith and the Sunnah of Prophet ﷺ, when I say Sunnah, I mean Hadith over here, they say كل ما أضيف إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من قول أو فعل أو تقرير أو صفة خلقية أو خلقية, this is Sunnah. So anything that's attributed to the Prophet ﷺ, from his statements, from his actions, from his tacit approvals, from his physical characteristics, from his moral behavior, everything is Sunnah. He breathes, Sunnah. He sleeps, Sunnah. Kul shay Sunnah. Okay? But this is not the same Sunnah which the fuqaha say. Al-fuqaha, when they say Sunnah, they mean something that's recommended. When when the usuliyun, the scholars of usul al-fiqh, they say Sunnah, they mean that which you do, you'll be rewarded for, and which you leave off, you'll not be punished for. So for example, if I say getting married more than once, is it Sunnah or not? The answer is, according to muhaddithin, it's Sunnah. But according to fuqaha, it's not Sunnah, it's mubah. You're not going to be rewarded for getting married more than once. At the same time, if I say getting married to a person who's divorced, is it Sunnah or not? According to muhaddithun, it might be Sunnah. But according to al-fuqaha, you're not going to be rewarded for marrying a divorced woman. Abadan. But at the same time, if someone says, is marrying a widow Sunnah in terms of getting a reward? The answer is yes. The hadith of Imam Muslim. Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam says, السعي إلى الأمانة كالجهاد في سبيل الله. For again, you have to be very careful how you understand this word Sunnah. Different books, different contexts mean completely different stuff. In this context, a Sunnah, how would you understand? What did I say? عقيدة. جميل. طيب. أمرا تصبر نفسك على التمسك به. As in, he's alluding towards that the Sunnah and the Aqeedah of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah is not something that's easy you can hold on to. That's why Imam Shatibi rahmatullah alayhi in his Hirz al-Amani, he says, وَهَذَا الزَّمَانُ مَنْ لَكَ بِالَّذِي كَقَبْضٍ عَلَى جَمْرٍ فَتَنْجُو مِنَ الْبَلَى. يعني عقيدة في أهل السنة والجماعة. There'll be a lot of enemies that's going to try to distort it. But holding on to it requires a lot of immense amount of patience. طيب. Then he goes, وَتَدْرَأُ بِهِ عَنْكَ شُبَهَ الْأَقَاوِيلِ وَزَيْغَ مُحْدَثَاتِ الضَّالِينَ وَقَدْ شَرَحْتُ لَكَ, as in when he says شَرَحْتُ لَكَ بَيَّنْتُ لَكَ, I'm clarifying the creedal matters, okay? منهاجا موضحة. منهاجا as in طريق, okay? لم آل نفسي وإياك فيه نصحا بدأت فيه بحمد الله ذي الرشد والتسديد. الحمد لله أحق من ذكر وأولى من شكر وعليه أثني. طيب, what's the difference between الحمد والشكر? They say الحمد is more general than a shukr, wherein it's expressed and said at all situations. So you say Alhamdulillah when you're going through hardships and distress, and you say Alhamdulillah when you're going through goodness. As for shukr, it is only expressed when someone does good to you and when you're being blessed. في فرق. Alhamd, if you were to put in a circle, it's a bigger circle, and shukr is a smaller circle. Alhamd is أعم من الشكر. طيب, as for الثناء, الثناء is تكرار الحمد. When someone is being praised multiple times, that's when we say that's thana. And if that thana is being repeated so much, like a lot, we call it majd. هذا هو العلاقة بين الحمد والشكر والثناء والمجد. طيب. He goes on to say and speak about the first belief. First belief, and you guys have the PDFs, do you? Huh? Do you guys have the access? Labud, do you guys have, it's an imperative, you guys have the, what's it called, PDF with you guys so that you can read with me what I'm saying. Otherwise it's going to be all confusing because I'm explaining a book. If it was just a lecture, it would be more easier. طيب. The first belief, the first point, and what's the first article are we studying? طيب. The first article we're studying is ضرورة إثبات الصفات بلا تمثيل ولا تعطيل. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has attributes that He has affirmed for Himself. Yeah? And it's necessary and it's obligatory and it's compulsory that we affirm all these attributes without personification. We do not say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's attributes are like that of the human. Nor do we negate these attributes because it seems like it's like that of the humans. So we do not distort its meanings, nor do we negate it, nor do we personify these attributes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To break it down, we have two aspects. أولاً, affirming the beautiful names and the perfect attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That which has been established through our Quran or Sunnah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has names, His attributes. The way He, like example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gets angry, it's an attribute of Allah. But His anger is not the same as our anger. So what we understand is we affirm these attributes. How Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala affirmed it for Himself without personifying it, likening it to the creation. B, without negating it either by bringing a new meaning to it or distorting the meaning. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has hands. We say khalas, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has hands, that which yani yaliqu bihi, that which befits Him. It's not like that of the humans, but we believe that He has, because He's told it about Himself. Khalas, naqif huna. We don't ask how, why, where, but we don't even try to interpret it in different ways. It means quwwah, it means what's it called, it means ni'mah, it means blessings, it means la la abadan. Why? Why don't we do that? Because it's from the unseen. When there's matters of unseen, you stop your brain. Khalas, no intellect, no logic. Sami'na wa ta'ana. Allah says angels have wings. We don't ask how. Is it made of feathers? No feathers. How is it? How many? Where? Is it in the front? Is it in the back? La. Khalas. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says something with regards to the unseen, believe in it however it's said. Jinns are made of fire. How is the fire? Why can't we see the smoke? Why can't we touch it? Can we touch it? Can we touch it? هذه المشكلة. Unseen matters. سمعنا وطعنا. How Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says? No logic. This is the simple principle. طيب. Another principle is the only way to establish the names and the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is through Quran and Sunnah. No logic. Okay, so if someone says Allah is loving, say yes. Maybe if you mean wadud, yes. If someone says Allah is muhib, Say, okay, why can't we say, we can't say Muhib? Allah is Wadud, khalas. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described himself to be al-Wadud. But bringing new names to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even if it has good meanings and good connotations, we're not allowed. The only way to establish names and the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is imma bil Quran or imma bil Sunnah. طيب. Let's read the Nas. He says, Imam al-Muzani rahmatullah alayhi, al-Wahid al-Samad, ليس له صاحبة ولا ولد, جل عن المثيل, فلا شبيه له ولا عديل, السميع البصير, العليم الخبير, المنيع الرفيع. طيب. This paragraph affirms and establishes 8 beautiful and perfect names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The first one being Al-Wahid, as in the one and only, the one who's singled out in all aspects, the one who's unique and distinct, hence the only deity worthy and deserving of worship, deserving of all the glory and worship, because he's the one and only, Al-Wahid. طيب. The second name Imam al-Muzani rahmatullah alayhi has established for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is As-Samad, the self-sufficient, needed by all, yet is not needed by need of anyone. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you were to think of As-Samad, it's like the anchor of the ship. Everything relies upon Allah, and Allah doesn't rely upon anyone. Everyone is in need of Allah, whether directly or indirectly, whether you acknowledge it or not. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not in need of any of his creation. طيب. Then he goes on to say, on a tangent, he does not have any companion nor a child, as it does not befit his majesty and glory. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is As-Samad, Al-Wahid, which entails that he does not have any partners, or he does not have anyone which he relies upon. He's exalted from any match, or neither does he have a counterpart or parallel. Yani he is distinct, the only one, the most powerful, the only one deserving of this glory. طيب. Next, we have the next word, As-Sami', the all-hearing. He hears and listens to everyone at all times. Yani his sam' is nothing like the humans. Human beings, it has like limitations. Yani a human cannot hear what's far away. Human cannot hear to more than 3-4 people speaking at once. La, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's hearing is not the same. Then Al-Basir, the all-seeing and sighting. He sees everyone at all times and does muraqabah of them and records what's being done. Al-Alim, the all-knowing, whose knowledge is infinite, encompassing. The one who knows every thought, every detail, every secret, everything of the future. Then Al-Khabir, the one who's aware what's going on. Al-Mani', the invincible. Al-Rafi', the grand. Most of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes in the wazn of fa'il, al-fa'il, yani Sami', Basir, Mani'. And then there's names that come in the wazn of fa'ul, yani Ghafoor, Ra'uf, yeah. But there's few, the least that occurs in the Quran and Sunnah is the wazn of fa'al, yani مثل Wahhab, Tawwab, Ghaffar. And the reason being, طبعا, is Fa'il and Fa'ul normally alludes towards maximum perfection of that attribute. As for Fa'al, alludes towards takrar. Like, what's the difference between Ghafoor and Ghaffar? Ghaffar is the one who forgives all the time, like over and over again. Keep forgiving you. Ghafoor, he forgives in extents which you cannot imagine. Fi farq, it's not the same. Although both come from Ghafara yaghfiru, which means to conceal and forgive. طيب. The second bend, which is the second article of this text, is the Ascension of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is Al-Ulu. And what's meant by Al-Ulu is Al-Irtifa', which is the elevation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah? And the ulama, okay, when they speak about Ulu, they categorize Ulu into two types. Number one, Ulu with that, which is referred to this context, okay, wherein Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above his creation at all times. This is not relative to the sky, by the way. It's absolute, as in he's above the universe. And this is also synonymous to the word al-fawqiyya in Quran. Yani وَهُوَ الْقَاهِرُ فَوْقَ عِبَادِهِ. Yeah, and it's not the same as al-istiwa. La. Al-istiwa is akhas. Al-istiwa is an action that is specific to the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to the arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As for al-ulu, it's an intrinsic attribute and an innate attribute and characteristic of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wherein He's above His creation at all times. The second type of al-ulu we have is ulu al-qadri wal-sifat. This refers to the perfection and the majestic attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the majestic qualities of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What's referred in this context over here is ulu with that. Okay, so طيب, he goes on to say ulu with عال على عرشه, as in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above His creation and above the throne at all times. And it's hal, jumla haliyah. طيب, there is a difference between al-arsh and kursi. What's the difference, guys? Is arsh and kursi the same thing? Or what's the difference then? جميل. الكرسي is موضع قدمي الباري. It's where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places His feet. As for العرش, مكان مخصوص, it's not مكان, it's better not to use the word مكان. سرير مخصوص للاستواء. طيب, yeah, you have a question? Yeah, al-arsh is throne, but kursi is not the throne, it's chair. The kursi is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places His feet on. As for al-arsh is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is on top of. طيب. Al-arsh, the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is different, طبعا, to the kursi. Number one, it has certain qualities. It is the biggest creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number two, it is the greatest creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in terms of appearance and form. And once we asked our teachers, okay, what about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Isn't he the greatest creation? They said, لا, he's the أفضل المخلوقات, the most virtuous of creation. As for أعظم المخلوقات, it's the arsh. And some other of the, when I mentioned to my other teachers, they got a bit upset. They're like, you should not compare the arsh and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in one context. It doesn't go, it's not respectful. And they used to say, ألم ترى أن السيف ينقص قدره إذا قلت أن السيف أمضى من العصا. Like if you compare a sword and a stick, the sword would lose its value. It's like you're disrespecting the sword. You should not do that. فعلى كل لطيفة, which I mentioned, like I remember from my mashayikh. Third thing is the arsh is the first creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's a difference of opinion. Is the first thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created qalam or arsh? Ibn Taymiyyah and بعض المحققين they do the tarjih that the first creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the arsh. Number 4 is the most heaviest of creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's nothing more heavier than that. Number 5 is the highest creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, making it the roof of the universe. And it is specific to istiwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it has legs like the chairs. You know how chairs have 4 legs? Al-arsh has 4 legs. And there are gigantic angels that carry this arsh. And how many of them carry this arsh? 8. اختلف في العلماء. Ibn Kathir rahmatullah alayhi has mentioned in his tafsir the 4. Until the Yawm al-Qiyamah. So we have the ayah وَالْمَلَكُ عَلَىٰ أَرْجَائِهَا وَيَحْمِلُ عَرْشَ رَبِّكَ يَوْمَئِذٍ what's it called? وَيَحْمِلُ عَرْشَ رَبِّكَ فَوْقَهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ ثَمَانِيَةٌ what's it called? They say يَوْمَ إِذٍ, as in not this yawm, as in Yawm al-Qiyamah. For now it's 4. Later on 8. Some other scholars say لا والله what's it called, this istinbat is غريب يحتاج للنص. Again, it's matters of unseen, you can't do that قياس. There's a difference of opinion. What's it called? Ibn Kathir and Al-Qurtubi, likewise At-Tabari, they all hold the opinions 4. And there's other scholars, Ibn Uthaymeen and so on and so forth, they hold the opinion that it is 8. طيب. Al-istiwa, what does al-istiwa mean? Come across this ma'na, like word over and over again, and everyone's scared, everyone is asking questions. Al-istiwa, the Salaf has done the tafsir of it into 4 words. Al-ulu, which means to rise. Al-irtifa', ascendancy. Al-su'ud. Al-istiqrar. These are the 4 words the Salaf always use for istiwa. Tafsir al-istiwa هو العلو والارتفاع والصعود والاستقرار. بل ذهب بعض العلماء such as Al-Hasan al-Basri rahmatullah alayh and Shuraih, because they said al-istiwa It means al-qu'ud wal-julus. It means sitting. Like literally they have said it. But again, when we're saying these things, you have to remember the main principle. The attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is nothing like that of the creation. Ibn Rushd, he kind of didn't like using the word al-julus wal-qu'ud. But what's mutadawil bayna salaf is this four, which is al-ulu, wal-irtifa' wal-su'ud wal-istiqrar. Again, what is it? It all alludes towards ascension and elevation. Tamam? طيب. He says, عال على عرشه. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above his throne. وهو دان بعلمه من خلقه. In the same time, although he's above his throne, he's with his creation, okay, in terms of his knowledge, and in terms of sighting and hearing, and so on and so forth. This, in Islam, in Al-Aqidah, we call ma'iyya al-'amma, general companionship and awareness. Al-ma'iyya al-'amma. As in, although Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above us, above the universe, yeah, yet he's close to his creation by his knowledge in terms of hearing, sighting, knowing what they think about. What's the ayah in Surah Al-Qaf? أقرب إليه من حبل الوريد. What's the ayah? ونحن أقرب إليه من حبل الوريد. What's it called? Which means, okay, how is Allah so close to our jugular veins and veins? How is he so close? What would you say? How would you answer? He's like, is he above the heavens or is he close to us? Which one is it? Isn't there a conflict? What would you answer? What's the answer to it? Is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala close to us? Okay, if both, there's a conflict. How can someone be, can you say something is hot and cold? He's close to us, he's far away from us, he's above us. Yeah, doesn't make sense. I told you, again, in terms of him being with us, okay, it means in terms of his knowledge, sight, hearing, and awareness of what we think about. Ma'iyya al-'am. Okay? But in terms of physicality, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's wujud, existence, where is it? فوق العرش, فوق السماوات, فوق السماوات. Not part of the universe. فهمت? طيب. And then there's something called ma'iyya al-khassa. The scholars speak about this. وهو مع المؤمنين مع الصابرين. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إن الله مع الصابرين لا مع المؤمنين, and so on and so forth. Yeah, this is called specific companionship, and it refers to the aid, support, and divine ability, the protection, and the guidance given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to those who believe in Him and expect and hope from Him. That's ma'iyya al-khassa. أما المعية العامة, this is for everyone. كافر, Muslim, فاسق, منافق, لا بأس. يعني everyone has ma'iyya al-'amma. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with everyone in terms of knowledge, in terms of sighting and seeing what they're doing. But ma'iyya al-khassa, it means a tawfiq, divine ability. It means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect you. Ma'iyya al-khassa is specific to the mu'mineen and awliya Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. طيب. Next, the author continues to clarify an aspect of one of the pillars of Islam which pertains to the belief of the divine ordainment and fate, destiny. Al-qada wal-qadr. Okay? The divine ordainment and fate is from the knowledge of unseen. And the maximum comprehension at which a human intellect perceives above the unseen is the beginning of the understanding of the knowledge of unseen. So the maximum level you can understand what's going on about the ilm al-ghayb, the unseen, is where the understanding of ilm al-ghayb starts. Aslan. But you cannot delve into the daqa'iq, the details of the matters of unseen. You'll be lost. You'll be mutahayyir. You'll be misguided. فلذا, one should not ask too many questions which pertains to the matters of unseen. What the Nas and the Quran and Sunnah has informed us about, khalas, that's what we believe in. We believe in a theoretic level, khalas. As for السؤال and البحث والتحري في هذه المسائل, in these matters, it can lead to misguidance. And you may even start doubting in everything from this religion. نسأل الله السلامة والعافية. طيب. First, let's try to understand this مسائل of qadr in easy ways, okay? أول شيء, al-qadr is from the actions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Which means it's from which type of tawheed, guys? Huh? ربوبية. القدر ومن الربوبية. كيف؟ What's a ربوبية? أفعال إفراد الله تبارك وتعالى في أفعاله. فالقدر من توحيد الربوبية. Here are certain principles before we study this pillar of Islam. Number one, actions which are destined by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as in these are the actions of Allah which emanates from Him, comes from Him, is called al-qadar. Okay? What does it mean? It means, what does it mean? Like, what does al-qadar mean? It means He knew it, then He has instructed it to be written on the preserved tablet, as in Lawh al-Mahfuz, then He willed it to happen. Hence the creation and all that will cause that decree to come into existence did so according to the will. So that's what's al-qadar. Again, He knew it and instructed the qalam to write it down in Lawh al-Mahfuz, and everything that He willed will come into existence according to the plan. هذا هو القدر. And the actions of the creation is al-maqdur. So if I do this, is what is maqdur. I did it. My actions are called maqdur, and the actions of Allah in writing the destiny, in deciding the destiny, is al-qadar. Okay, tayyib. We believe everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decrees and wills is good and has a wisdom behind it. As for the actions that come from the creations, al-maqdur, it can be that which is good, it could be that which is evil. As for Allah, His decisions are never evil. It cannot be described as evil. تَأَدُّبًا إِلَى اللَّهِ تَبَارَكَ وَتَعَالَى. We can only say something is evil when it comes from us. As for that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills, it's never described as evil. Okay, tayyib. And it's only described evil when it goes against the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So basically, this description is called iradat al-kawniyya. Iradat al-kawniyya is the will, the cosmic will. Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows things, okay, to go against the commandments of Sharia. How do we understand this? I'll explain it. Okay? In summary, that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does is all of it good and pure. We don't have any doubt in it. We ascribe evil and bad actions to the creation and not to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? And actions of the creation are attributed to Allah in terms of decree and cosmic will. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed it and what's allowed it. Okay? But in terms of what's done, if it's like evil or not, it goes back to the maqdur, it goes back to the creation. It's very important that we understand these concepts. It might be a little bit intricate, but if you guys focus, then you might understand. For example, cosmic will and legislative will. For example, Abu Lahab being kafir is the cosmic will. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed it. But what would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like want in terms of what is legislated? It's legislated for Abu Lahab to become Muslim. But did that happen? No. Okay. Abu Bakr becoming Muslim is both a cosmic will and a legislative will, which is called irada shar'iyya wal kawniyya. Irada shar'iyya is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves it to be loves for it to happen, and irada al kawniyya is the will that occurs for wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He goes against what He loves because of a wisdom to balance the world. There's many hikam. Rather, Miftah Dar al-Sa'ada of Ibn al-Qayyim, he mentioned more than 1,000 benefits of Iblis being there. 1,000. Like ajib. You might think, why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make Iblis? Ibn al-Qayyim, who's a human being, a creation of Allah, he just gathered 1,000 benefits. Fa'idah of Iblis being in our life. Gharib. If you want to know about Qadr, go back to Miftah Dar al-Sa'ada of Ibn al-Qayyim and go to Shifa al-Alil by Ibn al-Qayyim. ستستغرب, you'll be shocked and the details that's to do with al-qadr. Certain times people ask us questions, we're like, oh, I don't know how to answer. Go back to these books, read, seek knowledge. طيب. What's the difference between al-qadha wal-qadr? We keep saying al-qadha wal-qadr, qadha wal-qadr. What's the difference? Al-qadha is the qadr that has occurred and been decreed. Once you experience it, it's called al-qadha. For example, it's written in Lawh al-Mahfuz that one person will go through accident. This is al-qadr. But once the accident has occurred, we call it al-qadha. So al-qadr once it's done, we call it qadha. Al-qadr is from unseen. Al-qadha, we experience it, so it's not necessarily relatively from the unseen. طيب. Now, to complete our belief in al-qadha wal-qadr, we have to first know the ranks. What are the pillars and the ranks of al-qadha wal-qadr? The first level, how can we complete our belief in al-qadha wal-qadr? What do we have to believe? What do I believe? I don't understand. First thing we believe is the knowledge of Allah, that it is infinite, it's eternal, it's all-encompassing, and it's timeless. That's the first martaba of qadr, what we believe. We believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's knowledge is infinite. No beginning, no end. He knows everything of the past, future, any possible future, all the different possibilities of future, everything. If something were to happen the other way, he would know what's the outcome. Everything. Number two is that the writing of this knowledge. So, part of this knowledge has been written in the preserved tablet, which is al-Lawh al-Mahfuz. Nothing occurs in this universe except that it has been written in this preserved tablet. And it has been done so 50,000 years before the creation has been created. Kitaba. First martaba is ilm. Second martaba is al-kitaba. Third martaba is the will, which is called al-mashi'a. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does and He wills and chooses. He decrees and His decree cannot be reversed. And no one can oppose His decree. This is also called irada al-kawniyya. We have spoken about it. Irada al-kawniyya wal mashi'a are synonymous. لا بأس. طيب. The fourth rank is al-khalq wal-ijad. As in, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings things into existence according to what He willed, according to His knowledge. Me and you are there because He willed it before. And He wants certain things to happen in this dunya. Because of that, He made us. For example, now I'm going to give a lecture. Here I'm giving a lecture. Sah? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willed that someone will give lecture and it's me. فَلِذَا He created me. And هكذا. All these daqa'iq, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted certain things and it happened. This is called al-khalq wal-ijad. Again, the maratib, levels of al-qadr. Al-ilm, al-kitaba, al-mashi'a, wal-khalq wal-ijad. Okay, why am I mentioning this? Am I just making a categorization for fun? I have nothing to do? La. The one who rejects the first two categories are kuffar. The one who rejects the last two categories, they have fallen into fisq. As in, you cannot pray behind them. You should not give salam to them. You should not visit them. You should try to boycott them. هكذا. Anyone who rejects the last two categories, المشيئة والخلق والإيجاد, is fasiq, mubtadi'. And the one who rejects العلم الله, the knowledge of Allah, and the kitaba, is kafir. طيب. Certain scholars, they just categorize al-qadr into two, al-ilm wal-mashi'ah. Yani ijazan, summarized. It's either knowledge of Allah and the the will of Allah. And the reason is summary. And again, the first one is someone who rejects ilm is kafir, and the one who rejects mashi'ah is mubtadi'. طيب. Let's read what Imam al-Muzani rahmatullah alayhi says. أحاط علمه بالأمور. As in, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's ilm is encompassing everything, He knows everything. وأنفذ في خلقه سابق المقدور. And everything that has been decreed is going to go according to the plan. يعلم خائنة الأعين وما تخفي الصدور. فالخلق عاملون بسابق علمه ونافذون لما خلقهم له من خير وشر. لا يملكون لأنفسهم من الطاعة نفعا ولا يجدون إلى صرف المعصية عنها دفعا. خلق الخلق بمشيئته عن غير حاجة كانت به. But I explained it again, bijaz. I explained it in easy words. This whole ibarat alluding towards the four maratib, which is العلم wal, what's it called, kitabatu wal mashiyatu wal khalq wal ijad. It's again worthy that you guys have the matan with you because the translation is there. Okay, طيب. Imam al-Muzani rahmatullah alayhi then transists and goes to mentioning another article of al-Aqidah. And this article pertains to another pillar of Islam, which is belief in angels. Al-Malaika عالم غيبي. It is a realm of unseen, created from light. It's part of the unseen universe and realm. And they're created, the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them is for absolute submission and obedience to Allah. They're not capable of disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yani it's impossible that malaika can disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. From that, what we understand is, was Iblis from the malaika? The answer is no. He wasn't. If someone says, وَإِذْ قُلْنَا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ, Allah is saying, We told the angels to prostrate, everyone prostrate except the Iblis. Someone can make the argument that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded the malaika, but Iblis is not part of it. So, did he actually disobey Allah? What would you say? Huh? But what's the answer? طيب, this is a مسألة in usul al-fiqh we call استثناء المنفصل المتصل in lugha. It's an Arabic language chapter. We'll study, if you guys study Nahu, you'll understand. طيب. What's it called? Angels, they're not capable of disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Certain angels, they come in different hayat. They're very strong. Okay? But our belief pertaining to angels are complete if we have four components. Number one, we believe in the existence of the angels, that they are from the unseen realm. Khalas. Number two, we believe in the names of angels that we are informed about, whether be it in the Quran or Sunnah. So we have so many. Harut, Marut, Jibril, Jibra'il or Jibril, you can say both ways. Israfil, Mikail, Malak al-Maut, Malik. There's end, there's no end. Sanad'u Zabaniya. There's so many names. These names, we affirm it, we believe in it. We do not do inkar and reject any of them. Number two, this is number two. Number three, we believe in the characteristics and attributes described to us by the Quran. Angels have wings. They're made of light. These descriptions, where do we understand and get them from? Al-Quran or Sunnah. Because why? It's from the unseen realm. We can't use al-qiyas. Angel Jibril, how many wings does he have? 600. Jameel. Certain have 4, certain have 2. Angels, they differ. Alhamdulillah, alladhi fatir as-samawati wal-ardi. What's it called? What's the ayah? جاعل الملائكة لي أجنحة مثنى وثلاث ورباع يزيد في الخلق ما يشاء. طيب. Then let's read the عبارة وخلق الملائكة جميعا لطاعته وجبلهم على عبادته. As in, they're incapable of doing معصية. They're incapable of doing معصية. What's عبادة? What's the definition of عبادة? أفضل التعريف والحد للعبادة ما عرفه الشيخ المعلمي بكتابه رفع الاشتباه. أفضل من تعريف what's it called ابن تيمية رحمة الله عليه. العبادة وخضوع اختياري يطلب به نفع غيبي بسلطان. As in, it's a volitions submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which you're seeking an unseen reward. This is the best definition. أما اسم جامع لكل ما يحبه الله ويرضاه ظاهر وباطن في نظر. ليش? Why? What's the problem with this definition? Because any disobedience would be considered a shirk then. Because if ibadah means this, then what's the opposite of ibadah? Shirk. And disobedience would entail to it to be shirk. فلذا the best تعريف اسم عرفه المعلمي في رفع الاشتباه. What was the تعريف? خضوع اختياري يطلب به نفع غيبي بسلطان. طيب. Let's read the عبارة. فمنهم ملائكة بقدرته للعرش حاملون. حملة العرش. Okay? And then وطائفة منهم حول عرشه يسبحون. As in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have the ayah in Surah Zumar, وَتَرَى الْمَلَائِكَةَ حَافِينَ حَوْلَ الْعَرْشِ يُسَبِّحُونَ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّهِمْ وَقُضِيَ بَيْنَهُم بِالْحَقِّ وَقِيلَ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. And Surah Al-Ghafir as well, الَّذِينَ يَحْمِلُونَ الْعَرْشَ وَمَنْ حَوْلَهُ, what's it called? All of them pertaining towards, there's malaika that carry the arsh, and there's malaika that surround the arsh, glorifying Allah, worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then he keeps on going. He says, وَآخَرُونَ بِحَمْدِ يُقَدِّسُونَ وَاصْطَفَى مِنْهُمْ رُسُلًا إِلَى رُسُلِهِ وبعض مدبرون لأمره. Alluding towards who? Who's the Rasul from the Malaika? Jibril alayhi salam. طيب, and from the, who's the one who يدبر الأمور في الدنيا? ها? No, من ناحية موكل للجو ميكائيل. طيب. So he alluded towards certain Malaika. Again, this is ijaz. It's not a summary. Imam al-Muzani, he's not trying to teach us what's called Aqidah A to Z. It's giving taqrirat, certain statements that people can clarify certain matters of Aqidah. Then he goes on to another article. This article, let me just check the time. This article pertains to the trials and tribulations that has been afflicted to Adam alayhi salam. And what's the reason? What does this have to do with al-Aqidah? It is a completion of the chapter of Al-Qadr. It's a completion of a chapter of Al-Qadr. طيب. He goes on to say, ثم خلق آدم بيده وأسكنه جنته. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only created 4 things with his hands, by the way. Everything else, kun fayakun. He has instructed it to be, and it has been. From them, the throne, al-arsh, he has created with his own hands. Number 2, the qalam, created the pen with his own hand. Number 3, jannatu adn, the gardens of Eden. And number 4, Adam alayhi salam bi ذاته خلق بها. فلذا there is a مسألة خلافية جميلة جدا. Who is the أجمل خلق الله? Is it Yusuf or Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam or Adam? هم يقولون if Adam is made from the hands of Allah, it should be the يعني في خلاف يعني, but this is the Aqidah class, we don't have time for that. طيب. He says ثم خلق آدم بيده. How many hands does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have? 2. But he says 1. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created with one of his hands. Is that correct? Where is the people who study Nahu? Who studies Nahu from here? Nobody. MashaAllah. MashaAllah. طيب. هم يقولون المفرد المضاف يفيد العموم. If there is a singular and comes with a pronoun, it shows more than one. So when he says خلق آدم بيده, it means more than one. It doesn't mean one. So this is the importance of knowing the Arabic language. طيب. وأسكنه جنته. Okay, أسكنه جنته. He made him stay in Jannah. طيب. If you guys don't know Arabic, by the way, use the translation. What's it called? وقبل ذلك للأرض خلقه ونهاه عن شجرة قد نفذ قضاؤه عليه بأكلها ثم ابتلاه بما نهاه عنه منها ثم سلط عليه عدوه فأغواه عليها وجعل أكله لها إلى الأرض سببا فما وجد إلى ترك أكلها سبيلا ولا عنه لها مذهبا. طيب. This, to be honest, this concept is a very long concept. This concept in Al-Qadr is to do with afflictions. That which you're going to be afflicted with, you can't escape, no matter what you do. And that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to save you from, nobody can afflict you. Even if everyone wants to kill you, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't want that, you'll not be afflicted. This concept in Al-Qadr is called Qadr al-A'ir and Qadr al-Gha'ir. Mentioned in Shifa al-Alil, very long, what's it called, mas'ala. And likewise in Miftah Dar al-Sa'ada. These 2 books for this mas'ala is amazing. Qadr al-A'ir and Qadr al-Gha'ir. What's it called? At times you'll see afflictions. Where does it come from? حتى لا تتوقع. You cannot imagine. Come and destroy you in 1 second. ترى from the afflictions, my teacher rahmatullah alayhi, in February I met him, and he was afflicted with arthritis, couldn't walk. I was with him and we were reading in his house. حتى he couldn't move from his bed. Within few months, we did Hajj and I left. After I left, I heard, he called me and said that he got stage 4 cancer. Ajib, stage 4? 3 days ago, he passed away. خلاص how, the guy wasn't that old, he's 51, I guess, 50, 51 كذا. How afflictions come and خلاص, change the entire life. Like February, between this and this, there's not much time. How affliction came, it took the guy's life. هكذا الحياة. Afflictions, they come from nowhere and there's nothing you can save yourself from. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written and destined something for you, you can't avoid it. If something is not destined for you, no matter how much you strive for it, you cannot get it. Next, he goes on to say the belief in the heavens and hell. This mas'ala, this maqala, this article of believing in hell and heaven is a part of believing Day of Judgment, by the way. The rukn al-khamis, which is to do al-imanu bi yawm al-akhirah, okay, that speaks about this mas'ala. But then he does this ifrad randomly. Randomly he did ifrad. He singled out this mas'ala, okay? And the reason why is because he wants to refute those who deny al-qadr and the falasifa. The philosophers, they don't believe in the mas'ala of Jannah, Jahannam. Likewise, al-Qadariyah, they believe, negate that someone will enter what's called Jannah and Jahannam because of their actions. Okay? طيب. The heavens and hell are abodes that have been created by the creation. By Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the creation. Okay, so they are permanent and eternal abodes. Have been created by Allah for, like before the creation were created, by the way. So it has been created before يعني خلق الإنسان أصلا. And the Jannah, if we were to, give a definition to it, is an eternal abode with infinite bounties and blessings that can't be comprehended by the human brain. It guarantees eternal happiness, pleasure for those who believed in Allah and successfully acted upon the revelation. And the other names of Jannah, which we might come across, is Dar al-Salam, Al-Firdaus, Al-Husna, Tuba, Dar al-Maqama, Hakada. These are the names which the Quran speaks about. Okay? Some say they are different ranks. Taban, the Jannah has different, ranks. How many gates does Jannah have? 8. لها 7 أبواب is Jahannam. طيب. As for Hellfire, it's an abode for the criminals, the oppressors, the disbelievers. It's a place of torture, place of punishment and extreme agony. And the other names that the Quran mentioned about Jahannam, An-Nar, is Al-Jahannam, Al-Sa'ir, Al-Hawiyah, Al-Jahim, Al-Hutama, and Saqar. These are the names Quran Sunnah mentions. Gives all of them are synonymous. You can use each one. Some say they are different levels. Again, I'm saying some people say Hawiyah is Ashad. Saqar is like at the end of the lowest of the low. Yeah, you have a question? Yeah. It's called in Surah Al-Insan. What's the ayah? زمهريرة. What's it called? ثانية عليها. زمهريرة. مثلا زمهرية. نعم. What's it called? Our belief in terms which pertains to Jannah and Nar is 4 things. These are the 4 things we have to believe for our belief to be complete. Number 1, we believe that they have been already created and it exists, as opposed to Al-Jahmiyyah. There's a firqa, and rather many firq, to believe that the Jannah and Nar will come into existence at the day of judgment, or they won't even come to existence, some of them. It's falasifa. طيب. Number 2, they are eternal and they'll never perish. لا نهاية لهم. Number 3, Jannah is made for those who believe in Allah, and Jahannam is made for those who disbelieve in Allah. And if the believers enter Jahannam, one day they will be removed. طيب. Number 4, believing in all the types of pleasures and bounties that are mentioned in the Quran or the Sunnah about Jannah and all the sorts of tortures. If you listen to the tortures of Jahannam, it's scary. Surah Nisa, what's the ayah? كلما نضجت جلودهم بدلناهم جلودا غيرها ليذوقوا العذاب إن الله كان عزيزا حكيما. Scary. If you were to think about Surah Al-Kahf, what's the ayah? يشفي الوجوه. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give like water, just merely bringing the water in front of your face will burn down and fall. يشفي الوجوه بئس الشراب وساءت مرتفقة. These tortures, if someone were to ta'ammul, they would be scared. And the best book in explaining the tortures and the details of Jahannam is the book of Abu al-Faraj ibn Rajab rahmatullah alayhi, called At-Takhwif min al-Nar. And the best book written in the subject of Al-Jannah and the bounties in detail is that of Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah in Hadi al-Arwah fi Bilad al-Afrah. These 2 books, if you have it, you know everything about Jannah and Jahannam. طيب. We have stopped, and then the next mas'ala, or let's read the عبارة. What does the author say? ثم خلق للجنة من ذريته أهلا فهم بأعمالها بمشيئته عاملون وبقدرته وبإرادته ينفذون وخلق من ذريته للنار أهلا فخلق لهم أعينا لا يبصرون بها وآذانا لا يسمعون بها وقلوبا لا يفقهون بها فهم بذلك عن الهدى محجوبون وبأعمال أهل النار بسابق قدره يعملون. Again, I told you, he's trying to do it as a tatimma. It's a completion for Bab al-Qadr wal-Qada, but this is a pillar which pertains to the Day of Judgment. طيب. The next mas'ala, the article that the scholar, the Imam al-Muzani rahmatullah alayhi speaks about is al-Iman. And this Iman is not the same as the Iman which I mentioned in the beginning. This Iman pertains to the heart. Musamma al-Iman. Yeah. And is defined to be by the scholars as al-i'tiqadu bil-jinan. والقول باللسان والعمل بالأركان يزيد بالطاعة الرحمن وينقص بالعصيان. As in, if I were to just break it down, it has three components. Number one, the firm conviction and belief of the heart. Number two, the expression and the statements of the tongue that entail submission and worship, such as adhkar, such as الشهادة, نطق شهادتين, such as قراءة القرآن. كلها جزء من الإيمان. That allude that person has iman. Number three, actions of the limbs in order to fulfill the commandments. If someone says, I believe in Allah, but I don't pray, هذا رجل مهب يعني Muslim. If he does not do the actions that allude towards his iman is naqis. The iman has three arkan. It has to be fulfilled. Part of it has to do with the heart, part of it has to do with the statements, and part of it has to do with the actions. If someone right now says, I believe in Allah, but I will not take the shahada. Certain non-Muslims, I'm not ready for the shahada, but I believe in the concept of Islam. I believe in Allah. I believe in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I believe in everything. Makes sense. But I'm not going to take the shahada. I'm not ready yet. This person, we don't give a hukm of hukm al-Muslim. If he were to die today, we do not give him janazah, لا غسل ولا شيء. يعني he does not take hukm of Muslimin. ممكن يوم القيامة والله أعلم بينه وبين الله. As for the dunya, لا. لابد من نطق شهادتين. هكذا. فالإيمان, for your iman to be complete, there are three pillars. That which pertains to the heart. And your belief in heart merely does not save you. Number two, that which pertains to the statements. Number three, that which pertains to the actions. فلذا العلماء يقولون ترك الصلاة وتارك الصلاة هو كافر. The one who leaves the salah completely is kafir. He's rendered to be a disbeliever. His iman is not even there. Wait, how come? He believes in Allah, but the theoretical belief is never enough. For iman to be true, it has to be يعني all three together. For example, a person who prays all day but does not have the iman in heart, we call him munafiq. نفس الشيء. طيب. The ulama that, what's it called, the firqa, the group that rejected actions from iman is al-murji'ah. Those who said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all forgiving, as long as you say shahada, la ilaha illallah, we'll get in Jannah, inshallah, everything's fine. طيب. From the aqidah of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah is that iman increases and decreases. It never stays same. One day you can be very practicing, another day something can happen. Whether it be in terms of the environment you live in or the friends you have, what you do, it decreases. And the manat and the reason for the increase and decrease are two. Number one, the increase occurs due to obedience. Number two, the decrease occurs due to the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فهذا هو المناط الإيمان. طيب. We'll end with the last article بإذن الله. Next week we'll continue, okay? Which is to do with the Quran. Al-Quran. طيب. Al-Quran هو كلام الله, is a speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-Mu'jaz al-Muta'abbad. As in, it is the miraculous speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, preserved in miraculous ways, okay? And it is a form of worship to read it. بِتِلَاوَتِهِ al-Muta'abbad بِتِلَاوَتِهِ. We can worship Allah by reading it, merely reciting it, okay? Al-Manqul bit-Tawatur. It has been transmitted in mass numbers, okay? And it has been revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam biwasitat Jibreel, through the angel Jibreel, okay? And this Quran, for us, are believed to be complete. In the Quran, it has three things, three matters. Number one, we believe that Quran is truly and absolutely the speech of Allah, encompassing both the letters and meanings. Everything in the Quran is the speech of Allah. طيب. And it's not from the creation of Allah. طيب. Number two, it's uncreated. So what do we benefit from this mas'ala? Like, Quran is uncreated. So what's the practicality? That means that it will never perish, never come to an end, never disappear completely. طيب. Yet, from the I will come to the days of signs of Day of Judgment. Number three, it essentially originates from Allah, as in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the first to speak and utter it. And in the Day of Judgment, before the Day of Judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will lift it back to the heavens. So it will be lifted from both the suhuf and the sudur. No one will recall it, and nor the books will contain it. Because in the end of times, people will be so bad that they don't deserve the Quran to be there. The Quran is a mercy. The mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be lifted after the sun rises from the west. طيب. What's the difference between the Quran and Kalamullah? What's the difference between the speech of Allah and Quran? بينه وبين القرآن عموم وخصوص مطلق. In منطق we have, like in ilm of logic we have something called عموم وخصوص مطلق. As in, the speech of Allah is more general and the Quran is just part of the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Does it make sense? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has many speeches, many things. Not everything is in part of Quran. Hadith al-Qudsi, it's speech of Allah. It's not part of Quran. Maybe Torah, maybe Injil, maybe many things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke with Musa. Many things. Not all of them are recorded in the Quran. But the speech of Allah is more vast. لو كان البحر مدادا لكلماتي لنفذ البحر. The speech of Allah has no end to it. Quran, of course, we have like, it has beginning and end. Surah Fatiha, Surah Nas, till Surah Fatiha, like 30 juz. طيب. The speech of Allah is eternal. All speech of Allah is eternal, everlasting, in essence. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has this ability to speak at any time, however He wants, whenever He wants. And it's timeless. This ability to speak is an attribute of Allah. He does it whensoever He wants. طيب. Then he says, the scholar says, وَالْقُرْآنُ كَلَامُ اللَّهِ, as in, الْقُرْآنُ مِنْ كَلَامِ اللَّهِ. The Quran is from the speech of Allah, okay? وَمِنْ لَدُنْهُ, okay, وَلَيْسَ بِمَخْلُوقٍ, it's not from the creation. Why? Because anything that emanates, comes from Allah, and is part of, part of Him, can never be created. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not created. So anything that pertains to Him is never created. Yeah, it's like how the Mu'tazila have said. Okay, طيب. فَيَبِيد, like the creation, it comes to an end. The creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes to an end, it perishes. Yeah? And there's only 8 exceptions, by the way. 8 things in the world and the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never perish. All the other creation will come to an end. From them, number 1, al-jannah wan-nar, like we mentioned. The heavens and the earth, heavens and the hell, did the creation of Allah, la shak. Once they have created, they'll never perish. They'll never perish. Number 2, the throne of Allah and the kursi of Allah. Once they have created, they'll never come to an end. Number 5 and number 6 is the pen which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala writes al-qadr, or instructed the pen to write the qadr with, and the preserved tablet. Lawh al-mahfuz and qalam, they never perish. Number 7 and 8, the ruh never perishes, rather it goes through marahil. From hayat al-barzakhiyya, from hayat this, hayat, it just moves from different bodies. Ruh, the soul of human, never gets destroyed. Number 8, the tail of a spine, dhanab. The tail of the spine? At the end we have of our spinal cord. This never gets destroyed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never perishes. Sabab, in Yawm al-Qiyamah, this is going to be the root where, what's it called? It's going to be coming out from. Now if someone were to think about, okay, how is it going to happen? I'm going to take it and smash it and all these kalam. We'll say these are masala of the unseen. We cannot ask too many questions about it. Okay. بهذا بإذن الله والله, what's it called? بإذن الله, next class we'll talk about sifat, ajal, death, and the attributes of Allah, qabr. And inshallah, بإذن الله, hopefully we can try to finish the entire book by the next class, inshallah. Jazakallah khair for attending. وصلى الله عليه وسلم وصلى الله عليه وسلم محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. If you guys have any questions, Sam? Yeah. Yeah. No, this ترى this فرقنا بين الإرادة الكونية والإرادة الشرعية. كون الشيء يخالف الشريعة لا يعني الله سبحانه وتعالى called wanted them to go جهنم. لا, it's من أفعالهم و for the عدم الصدق. Ibn Taymiyyah rahmatullah speaks about this مسألة. Why certain people have hidayah, although the message is same. Abu Lahab and Abu Bakr both had the same prophet and both message were the same. But why did Abu Bakr accept it and Abu Lahab didn't? يرجع إلى النفس والصدق, صدق الرجل. Understand? مشركي القريش were never صادقين. They were مقلدين of their آباء. That's it. فلذا they were never granted the hidayah. Hidayah is a blessing and you have to earn it. How do you earn it? الصدق. باحي في what's it called حق will always get hidayah لا شك ولا ريب. فلذا سلمان الفارسي from force بحثا عن الحق he traveled to Syria, ran away. He told the people of Christians to kidnap him. He studied the Christian religion and became a scholar of the Christian religion. Then he heard there's another religion that's going to come, another prophet that's going to come. He moved to Medina through slavery. يعني بحثا عن الحق. فلذا الله سبحانه وتعالى brought him to the religion of Islam. هكذا الصحابة كلهم there is a صفة الصدق. هذا هو السبب. أما والله Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted, I would be born in Mecca and I'll be born in this house of the Imam of the Haram, or memorizing Quran. But Allah didn't want it, so I don't. لا يعني الشيء يرجع إليك. Understand? نعم. Any other question, guys? Yeah. وما أصابك من حسنة فمن الله وما أصابك من سيئة فمن نفسك وارسلك. طيب من ناحية الخلق والإيجاد قلنا الله سبحانه وتعالى يخلق جميع الأشياء سواء كان الخير والشر. خلق كل شيء ولكن من ناحية الانتساب who we attribute good and shar to, we attribute only good to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala تأدبا له. As for shar, we do not attribute to the what's it called Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, rather we attribute it to the what's it called يعني creation. القاعدة هو أن أفعال الله تبارك وتعالى تنسب إلى الله خلقا وتقديرا وتنسب إلى العباد تحصيلا واكتسابا. هذا هو القاعدة. بهذه القاعدة you'll understand أن أفعال الله تبارك وتعالى أن أفعال العباد تنسب إلى الله خلقا وتقديرا وأن what's it called what does it say أن أفعال العباد تنسب إلى الله خلقا وتقديرا وتنسب إلى العباد اكتسابا وتحصيلا. This is the قاعدة. من ناحية الخلق والإيجاد أن الله خلق كل شيء سواء كان يعني هو يسبب الشر أم لا. الله ما سبب الشر. This مخلوق the مقدور what's it called مخلوق is the one who يسبب الشر. فهمت كيف؟ نعم. إلى الله تبارك وتعالى. فلذا even the jinn من كمال الأدب وأن what's it called what's the آية وأن لا ندري أشر أريده. why did what's الفعل الماضي what's called مبني على المجهول what's it called سببه عدم تأدب لله تبارك وتعالى. طيب anyone else؟ خلاص بارك الله فيكم صلى الله عليه وسلم.